Welcome everyone to the Reconnect Self podcast, where we help you re-find your centre and ultimately rediscover what brings you joy. I am your host. My name is Scott. I am a filmmaker and I'm here with my wife, Tracey, who is a counsellor. Hello, babe.
Hi.
Today, we're going to talk about overwhelm, which I imagine you see a lot.
This is a big one.
In your practice.
Yes.
So there's probably a few bits and pieces to discover. I know that you have a few tips and tricks that we can share with the viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
But should we maybe start as we always do, which is, I guess, like a bit of a definition, a bit of an overview of when we talk about overwhelm, what are we specifically discussing?
I think it's that feeling people get when something in their life feels so big that they almost feel frozen and not know how to deal with that. Like it really impacts their ability to think or to maybe even regulate themselves. They just get caught in their heads. But it really leads to inaction. Like it can really make people not know where to go, not know how to help themselves. They just feel almost frozen.
I didn't think about this before the episode, but the very first thing that's popped into my head is you've had a bit of overwhelm.
With food.
Yeah. Do you want to,
Yeah.
Is that a good place to start?
Well, we could start there. So recently I've been on my own little wellness journey, and one of the things that one of my really good friends, we talk about her a lot, Nikki, she studied Ayurveda and she discovered that my digestive fire in my tummy, my belly, that breaks down food wasn't burning correctly. And so she recommended that I cut out certain foods and bring in certain foods or more eat certain foods. And so when she sent me through this massive document with everything from food, but also emotions and different things, because Ayurveda is a very holistic wellness system. So when she sent through all this information, even just the level of information felt like, oh my God, like how am I going to get across all of this stuff? Yeah. And then when I started looking at all the food and what I could and couldn't have compared to what my diet normally is, and I think my diet nowadays is pretty what I would consider healthy, but the problem is that wasn't helping my digestive fire. So it's not about health, it's about what are the foods that are helping with that fire and what are dampening that fire. So she banned me from yogurt. Well, she didn't quite, but she heavily suggested no yogurt. So certain things that you would just assume are fine and healthy and good choices compared to a hamburger or chips or whatever, were not really helping me. So I got this sort of guide through, and then when I would start thinking about what to make for myself or what I could have, I would get so overwhelmed with it being so different and so outside of my comfort zone that I actually started skipping meals a little bit. Yeah. I fast anyway, which I think is a very good thing for my body, but I started being a little bit like, I think I just would rather not have lunch then and try and figure out what I could have that might be nice and enjoyable and from that list, or I don't have all the things in the house. So I think just feeling like I didn't know where to start was what really made me feel really overwhelmed. In fact, I remember being in tears thinking about what can I have for breakfast, because I need to take these certain supplements that, need to be on food, but none of the food choices I would normally have. Even a banana, I wasn't allowed to have a banana. Like that was not going to be helpful for my system. So the most simple things I wasn't able to have. So I remember being really overwhelmed, in tears, messaging my friend, what can I have for breakfast? That kind of thing. So one of the things that she did, which is what I'm going to tell everyone about, is to just take one step. She really guided me with, hey, I've been doing this for years and years and years. So where I'm at and all the things that I'm doing in my life, that took me years to get to that point. So one of the things that she suggested for me to get my digestive fire back and going was a particular tea, which I'm actually drinking right here. So I meant to have this tea before having any of my meals to get the digestive fire going. Now this is peppercorn and ginger, so not the most appealing when I looked at that, but funny enough, my body is actually really quite liking it, so I must need it. But the reason I'm telling you that is because I then scrapped these big, I need to do this, I need to do that, and looking at this big list of all these things, and I just took it down to the basic of just have tea before you have your meal to help with that digestive fire. So don't worry about it being the most perfect food or everything is on that list or not on that list that you're covering. Just start with one thing, and that's made a massive difference to me. So I think the first step is kind of break it down for yourself.
Yeah. I feel like how you always criticize me that I don't listen to your advice, and then I repeat the same advice that someone else has told me That was what you told me originally.
Let's not say criticise. Let's just say
because
I give you feedback about that.
this is very recent. What we're talking about
This is last week.
Yeah, like a week ago.
Which is why I'm on the tee.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I gave you that advice, and
You did, and you stayed really calm with me, because at that point, I'm already feeling overwhelmed. My emotions are going. I'm feeling, you don't think clearly. When you go into fight and flight, the part of your brain that's responsible for reasonable, rational thinking, that's offline. That is offline right there. So the first thing is kind of regulating yourself so you can bring that part of your brain back online. And so you were doing that for me.
Is overwhelm, it does put you into fight and flight?
Yeah.
Because I thought that was more anxiety.
Well, it can lead to anxiety because you can be like, where do I start with this? What's going to happen if I eat this food? So that's where I was at.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So yes, it can definitely lead you to feeling dysregulated.
All right.
Even if you just put it like that, dysregulated.
So for the record, I was giving great advice.
You were giving
noted.
Amazing advice that you were repeating.
Okay. So let's take a step back, because I think we just immediately jumped into tips there.
Well,
but it is a good one.
Yeah, let me tell you what it would look like if someone came into my office. They might come in and they almost appear really full. They will start to say, I've got this going on, and then this going on, and then this is going on with my kids, and then the in-laws are coming to stay next month. And they've just got all these things that make them feel like their plate is full and they've got heaps of things to consider. So that's immediately what's happening is, in their thinking, they're going from one thing to the next. So they're going, oh my gosh, and I've got to do this for work, and how am I going to get that done? Because I've also got to get this done, and I've got to get the house sorted for the in-laws. So they're kind of jumping from one topic in their mind of what's a problem in their life and going to the next and going to the next. And that's actually what leads to overwhelm, is where it's coming kind of from all angles, not just one particular area. It'll feel like it's coming across many areas.
Yeah.
So it could be, someone not feeling happy about their health, and then they're feeling that their relationship isn't great, and then they're feeling like this is also going on. So it's kind of like one thing leads to the next, and it can be a little bit of catastrophic thinking where they all then escalate. So something that would have been kind of on a scale of 0 to 10 might have been like a 3. And maybe as it got closer to the time of that deadline or the in-laws coming, it might have ramped up a bit. But that 3 has suddenly jumped up to a 7 or an 8 just by being linked in with all the other things that might have been a higher level, because it's kind of like that thinking of, and another thing, and we kind of jump from one thing to the next. So I'll move straight into my first tip.
Yep.
When I've got a client that's doing that, I will try and get them to get it out of their head and onto paper as quick as possible, because that's going to make them more objective. When it's in your head, you're creating chemicals just by thinking about it. So I just get them to start off by drawing a big circle on the page, or getting a piece of paper, big circle on the page, and we're doing a pie chart. So I get them to start off by, what are all the things currently, right now, today? Don't think about how you felt yesterday or last week, but for right now, today, how are you feeling about the different areas of your life? Like, what's getting your attention? So for me personally, it could be food, my wellness, it could be my retreats, like whatever it is that, that maybe is getting my attention in that moment. And then I divide up the pie chart based on the bigger the worry or the bigger the concern, that would get the biggest chunk, right down to the smaller pieces. So that straight away gives people the understanding of, okay, I am thinking about the in-laws coming, but that's not for 3 weeks away. So right here, right now, that actually isn't a bigger a worry as it might be in 3 weeks' time. But for right now, my biggest things are these, and these. So straight away, we're kind of almost separating out where our focus goes, rather than it being like everything is getting my attention and everything is getting that same feeling. So we're just trying to see what's currently going on and seeing what's causing that. So say I'm dividing that up, and if this is, someone I'm working with, work might be one of the biggest stresses, or their relationship might be one of the biggest stresses. So straight away we want to go, well, what's causing those feelings, or what are you feeling in that area? So some people that don't really know themselves very well or know their feelings very well, you could use a resource like a feeling sheet, which I think we've got on our website.
Yes, I think we've linked to it in one of the other episodes, but I can link to it again.
Yeah, so you could use a feeling sheet, and then just looking at every section, you just see what feelings jump out for you around that section. And don't even question it, just write them down into that section, and then you could start getting a bit more information. Why am I feeling that way? What's causing that particular feeling? Is that is that valid? And while your feelings are always valid, what's caused the self-talk that's given you that feeling? Like, is that the bit that's valid? So you're really just checking out, am I overwhelming myself, or are these things truly valid for what the experience is? Once you've done that, you might not even need to do that. You might know exactly how you're feeling, so you just put in the category, in that particular piece of the pie. Then what you would do is you go, what are all of my options I have in regards to this? Because when we start feeling like we have choices, then we don't feel so trapped, and it actually, can feel a little bit better. I'm going to give you a stupid example for this. I recently went to Sydney for my training, and the level of accommodation was camp-like. And so
basic.
It was basic. And I just had come from a hotel because I was there for 2 days before the course, which was really lovely. I had my own sitting area. I mean, I chose a nice hotel because it was in the suburbs. It wasn't really that crazy expensive, but it just was really lovely. And so then suddenly I'm coming into a space where the room was okay, but it was a single bed with mismatched doona covers, and the bed was too short for me, and just all these things. And then there was a bathroom that was shared, and obviously that's not great when you're an adult and you're having to, bring your clothes to the bathroom to get changed. So it was all these things that didn't feel very nice. So if I look at all my options I would have had at the time, I could have chose to get another hotel and just commute to the training and not stay on site. I could have seen if there was a different bathroom I could use that was better than the one that I had across the hall from me, which turned out to be the case. Or I could have just sucked it up and just put up with it. So even just knowing I had 3 choices can make me feel like, okay, I can't be bothered getting another hotel. I can just probably suck it up. I can just go to the other bathroom. That's not going to be too big a deal. I know what I'm like normally, that I can adjust to things pretty quickly. It's just a shock at the very beginning. So even just trying to see, is there options here, even if I don't want to take them?
Right.
So, for example, with a workplace, you could go, okay, I'm unhappy with the things that are going on. What are all my options? I could quit. Absolutely, I could. I could talk to my supervisor. I could keep notes about the things I'm unhappy about, so that when I'm ready to see the supervisor, I've got tangible, actionable things that I can talk about, to give them examples about, what's going on. I could start looking for a new job and just know that I'm not going to stay here forever. So even just looking at what are all my options, and for right here, right now, which is the one that jumps out at me the most, now we've made a plan.
So why does this work?
Because you made a plan. So when things pop into your mind where you're like, I'm so sick of work and I hate that person doing this and da-da-da, we're just whirling around. We're just whirling around with all those thoughts. And then because we're whirling around with all those thoughts, all those chemicals attached to that start being produced and start moving around your body.
Because is that one of the biggest things about overwhelm? Like, I've experienced overwhelm a lot. Mm-hmm. Is you can never latch on to one single thought.
Because they move to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah.
And it will be, and especially if someone's in a low mood, and another thing, I'm also unhappy with my weight, and I hate my blah, 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 and my, and they just keep going to the next, to the next, to the next. So that's why we want to break it down into the pie chart and go, why am I even thinking about that right now? That is not going on in my life right now. That's down the track, or that happened in the past. Is
that possible when you're in it, when you're dysregulated, you're in fight or flight?
No, that's where you would need to regulate first, because we're not thinking clearly. Yeah, so we want to regulate, get ourselves back to our centre. So that's some of the tips we've given before, where you could really focus on your breathing, making sure that you're doing really long, slow exhales to dispel the carbon dioxide that you would have been built up from that extra oxygen coming in with your rapid breathing. Because as soon as you start to feel overwhelmed, your breathing is going to be more rapid and shallow.
Yep.
So just changing that, maybe just changing your environment for that moment and trying to be a bit mindful, focusing on, your surroundings, getting back into your body, dancing, stomping your feet, clapping your hands, anything to feel the sensations in your body. We all know how much I love humming, bringing on the vagus nerve. So yeah, you want to bring yourself back into the body first before you can get into any kind of problem-solving mode.
Okay.
But
we've talked about that on previous episodes.
And no one's going to stay in overwhelm 24/7. You'll have moments of it,
yep.
But there'll be times when you are regulated.
Okay, so practically speaking, you're feeling really overwhelmed. You're dysregulated, but you know that you're dysregulated.
Yeah.
So the first thing you do is apply whatever strategy works for you to sort of calm your nervous system down.
Yeah.
Then when you're feeling more calm, that's
pen and paper, get it out of your head.
And you're drawing a pie chart?
Yep, just draw a big circle. And then, so the reason I say write down the list of things on the side of the pie chart first, so work, this, that, whatever the things are that currently are getting your attention. So it doesn't have to be every area of your life, because if, for example, nothing's worrying you about the kids, they're not going to make the list. But if you were having major problems with one of your kids for whatever reason, they'd be on the list. And then when you're dividing up the pie chart, you're looking at that, list on the side and going, which one is the biggest area for me right today?
Yeah.
And so again, just tuning in with today stops the overwhelm of, well, normally that would affect me. No. What are you feeling right now?
Okay. So that's an important part of the puzzle.
Yeah. What's happening now?
Right.
Yep. Because there'll be different things that might affect you on that day. So you're just looking at right now, and then you're looking at all of the options you have for that area, even if you don't want to take them. So if, say, for example, your kid's having problems at school, you could take them out of school. You could homeschool them. You could get them a tutor. You could keep having regular meetings with the teacher. You could, I don't know.
Speak to the...
Whatever it might be. But it's looking at every option. So even though you might know, I'm never going to take my kid out of that school, still write it down. It's still an option. There's something about having options that makes us feel less trapped.
Oh yeah, we talked about this on the anxiety episode, which is episode 2, is I realised when I was in, I guess, my most anxious period of my life, it's feeling trapped.
Yes.
Feeling trapped is the biggest thing that puts you in fight or flight.
Yes. So that's why you really want that plan. Because as soon as you're feeling overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, like me with the food, you don't even know how to take that first step.
Well, you couldn't imagine eating again.
Yeah, I had no joy in eating, which if anyone knows me at a party and a snack table, they know that that's really, really unusual for me. But the thought of food, even when I'd say to myself, you can have anything you want, don't even worry about, your digestive fire and stuff, let's just try and get some enjoyment back in food. Even that felt overwhelming. So it really was that first step of have the tea that I needed.
Yeah.
Because again, we could have looked at all the different options I had at that time and gone, you could start with this, you could start with this, that could have been my different options.
Yeah.
My different options could have been, let's not even worry about this right now. It wasn't what I wanted to take because I wanted to get better, but it was still an option.
Should we, and this is not for my own self-gratification, but I felt like I was pretty good in that scenario where I could see you were struggling.
Yeah. Well, you became that for me. You became the one that, sort of broke it down with me and tried to reassure me that, just take one step. It doesn't have to be everything.
So if you see your partner, for example, or your kids are struggling with overwhelm, I guess you're just applying the same principles, right? But you're sort of guiding them through. Yeah. Is that what you would do?
Yeah, and you were also very... you acknowledged my feelings. You didn't dismiss it. You didn't tell me I was silly or, whatever else. You got it. You understood and you empathised with me. So feeling understood is really important too. And then that helped me to kind of almost trust you to talk about it. Whereas if I felt like you were judging me or thought I was being silly, I'm not going to open up to you.
I guess because of that specific example we talked about in one of the holistic health episode, I think it was, where I've had gut health issues, I've had to follow very strict diets. So it's quite easy for me to empathise with you in that.
Yeah, because you've been there.
Because I've been, in similar situations where you just would go, I just can't be bothered eating.
And you know what? The other thing that I did do is I started sharing that. Like I said, I messaged my friend when I was in tears, but I told her I was in tears. So she knew I was feeling overwhelmed. I also spoke to one of my really close friends I go to the gym with, and she was so sweet. She was sending me ideas. So sometimes it's also about sharing what you're feeling so that you can get that support.
Yeah.
But going back to the pie chart, we want all the options, and then for you to then decide in that moment, so again, it might be different the next day, but what is it that jumps out at you to go, nope, that's my plan for today. Maybe if it's a workplace, I'm just going to start writing down all the things I'm not happy about, so I've got that evidence when I do speak to a supervisor, if I choose that. But that makes you then feel like I've got a plan to action.
Yeah, I think it's the act of acting. So the action kind of makes you feel like, because I think with overwhelm, fight or flight, but the other part of that is freeze.
Which is why you can't take the steps.
Yeah, when you're overwhelmed, sometimes you're just frozen.
Yeah.
And that's why you didn't want to eat, because you're like, I don't
know where to start.
I don't know what to do. Okay, so the whole benefit of having this pie chart thing is that you're creating a plan, and from the plan, you can take a step.
Yes, but also it's not even that you have to take a step. It's more that when that worry comes into your mind, instead of ruminating and going through the same information, because that's what happens. We end up saying the same things to ourselves over and over again. It's not new information. I promise you, it's not new information. You are ruminating.
Yeah. Okay.
So what you want to do is as soon as that pops into your mind, so say we're talking about work or your kids, I'll go with the kids' school. So you're having a worry about your child. If you've made the plan of, I'm going to make an appointment with the teacher, or I'm going to do whatever that step is, every time that pops into your mind and you start to go down that rabbit hole of worry, you go, no, I've got that plan. You don't allow yourself to go down that rabbit hole of thinking and going through all the scenarios again. We've done that work.
Yeah.
It would be like saying to yourself, oh, I need to remember to go to the shops after work to get blah, blah, blah. If you've got that on your list, all day, every day, you're not going, oh, don't forget the whatever it is on the list. Don't forget the milk. You're going to know it's on the list. I can leave it alone. You're not all day having to remind yourself of that. So when you've made a plan, you have to be disciplined to keep then challenging it and almost like smacking it away mentally, where the thought comes in, no, I've got a plan for that. And then you can also tell yourself, I will relook at it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of it, is get to a point where you've got a plan for all of those sections that you've put on the piece of paper. And then the next day you can do that again, because it might be new information's come through, or it may be initially you might need to just do it a few times to reassure yourself, oh, I still feel the same way. But we're not going down the rabbit hole of, oh, and I could do this and I could do that. We've already got it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's new information, we would do it again, because maybe there's a new option that's come available to us or one that's taken off the table. So we might do it again. But the same thing, we're not allowing ourselves, once we've done that activity, we're not allowing ourselves to ruminate off that the rest of the day. We've made a plan, it's done.
Can you, if you're doing it the next day, can you just add it to the same piece of paper that you did
You
yesterday?
don't even need to really, yes, you can, but you don't, if it was the same, you wouldn't even need to really do anything apart from look at it. Is everything still fitting like, or feeling like it's the right plan for me for today? And you could go, yeah, it is. Or actually, no, I'm really sick of that boss now and I think I'm going to escalate that and this is my new plan.
With the, I'm not sure if this is 100% related to overwhelm, but it might be what you were talking about with ruminating. Mm-hmm. I think I'm much better than I used to be at this, but if I go back 10 years when I was managing a team of people, and so work was stressful. And one of the things that I would do in terms of ruminating would be rehearse conversations in my head constantly. Even if I had a plan, you'd sort of go, okay, and then you would play it out in your mind. And that takes up a lot of energy and mental real estate.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time, and I can't remember how I did it, because it all sounds easier said than done when you say, no, you just got to block that out. But I think it's such an important point.
But that's why we need to do it on paper, because that's objective.
Yeah.
As soon as it's in your head, it's subjective. Like it's you know, you're linking things together.
Let's say that we'll keep the school one going, that you're going to book a meeting with the teacher. Mm-hmm. Many people would probably then start rehearsing what they're going to say to that teacher.
Again, get it on paper. My dot points. What am I covering? I want to cover the teacher's behaviour towards my kid. I want to cover the da-da-da in the classroom. I want to cover the such and such in the school policies. What are the things you wanted to address? Get it down on paper. And then you don't need to keep thinking about it because I've got it on paper.
And this is my point is, and there might not be a way that we can teach people, but it's very important that once you have established your plan, don't let the
thoughts keep coming back in.
rehearsal of that conversation that you're going to have with that teacher keep coming back in.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else I can tell people not to do it. For me, it was, I think, the awareness to go, Scott, you're doing it again.
Yeah.
You're rehearsing that conversation again. You've rehearsed it 10 times already. You have the dot points written down on the piece of paper, and just mentally going, no, I'm not allowing it.
Yeah. It does require discipline, but we have to have that in other areas as well.
Yeah.
You know, so it is about noticing how you feel when you keep rehearsing it, because if that made you feel more confident rehearsing that because you knew what you were going to say, like for example, I had to recently do a speech for a women's in business conference. you made me rehearse that. Like you wanted me to get really confident with that.
I guess, your point is valid. You're saying, if that's giving you the confidence that it's going to go well, then that's fine.
But if it's making you feel like it's draining
it's
and
it's a negative, I'm ruminating on it, it's making me upset.
Yes.
That is the part where you have to go, nope.
Yep, and I've got a plan for that, and I'm not going to keep rehearsing that plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's no actual step on how to do it. It's discipline. You catch yourself having those thoughts and then...
But again, it will be easier if you've got things written down. As soon as you go into those thoughts, you grab a piece of paper out. Is there anything new I need to add to this? No, it's not. Okay, shush, mind.
Yeah, okay.
And not giving it that attention.
Cool.
It's because you're allowing it, and we do allow it. And so again, if it's constantly chattering away, you could use a grounding technique. You could change that thought pattern. We talk about in other episodes the alphabet game, where you're going through, what's a food starting with A, or what's a suburb starting with A, what's a country starting with A, whatever the topic is.
Yep.
You're moving through the alphabet, and by having to then focus on the new thought that you're having to answer that question for yourself, you have to push back that thinking around that topic to answer your own question. And even, to be honest, when I'm doing it with clients, I'm having to run through the alphabet song in my head to figure out what comes after F, And so even that's another level of complexity that's going to push away those other thoughts so that you can answer that question. So again, grounding techniques, bringing yourself back into your body to stop that ruminating.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So going back to that pie chart, get all your options, know that you can do it every day. Every time that those thoughts pop back into your head, nope, I've made a plan for today. I'll revisit it again tomorrow and look at it again then.
Good advice.
But you don't really spend much more than sort of half an hour, 20 minutes on that. You don't labour over it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I know you have other tips. You want to go into your next one?
Another tip can be, and this would depend on, what it would be about. So often people come to me with work stresses and they could, feel like they're not enjoying their home life because they're still thinking about the problems at work or the to-do list or whatever it might be. So this one's more of a visual one that you could use. On your drive home, you imagine all of the stuff that, would play on your mind or things that you've got to do tomorrow. And you kind of imagine it almost like in a bag or a suitcase, and you're going to drop it off. Maybe as you drive home, you go past a bridge. You could just mentally leave that baggage at the bridge and know that tomorrow on your way back to work, you'll pick that back up and you can think about it again. But for right now, you don't need to keep thinking about that. So once you've left it there, you're going to, again, you mentally switch off from that. And also just know that you're allowed to have your time off. You don't need to keep, worrying about or thinking about or planning about, that next day or all the things still on your to-do list. That by actually dropping off that baggage, you're going to come back refreshed and ready to tackle those things. But if you've been ruminating all night or feeling like you need to figure something out, you're not going to be appreciating your home life. You're not going to create any balance for yourself. And again, it's not even probably productive because you're probably ruminating.
Yeah, I feel like it's similar to the conversation we just had.
Mm-hmm.
It's the constantly going over it and over it in your mind. So
for no benefit.
The reason this one works is it's a mental cue, or
it's a mental cue that I'm going to pick it back up. It's still going to be there for me tomorrow, but I'm going to leave it here now. Like giving yourself that permission to stop thinking about it, to leave it there. And I think that's really hard sometimes when we're so contactable, because it's easy to check the email when we get home. It's easy to respond to a text message or take a phone call or whatever it is. So having those boundaries, because it really comes down to boundaries. This is a mental boundary of you going, I'm not paid for this now. I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to enjoy my life.
Yeah. I think it's a big one.
That'll take practice. It's not, as easy as said as done, but it's also giving yourself again that permission. I don't need to keep thinking about this. What benefit is that for me ruminating all night? That just means I'm not present for my family.
There's a couple of things that reminded me of a couple of things that I did when I worked for someone else, and I could never understand why people didn't do these things, because with your phone sitting right there, which has your work email, people have contact sending you text messages about work, people might be calling you at weird hours about work. A couple of simple things I did, and this is a long time ago, and it might seem like common sense, but I turned all my notifications off. I moved, this was a big one, because when you have that little email app on your phone, and it has the little red circle of how many new emails are in your inbox. That used to be on the very first page on my phone, and I moved it all the way to the back, so you have to like swipe 5 or 6 times, because even though I was very disciplined about not checking my email at home, the fact that I could see how many new emails I had was not a very nice feeling, and it would be a little bit distracting, or it would give a little bit of anxiety about what's in there, what have I got to deal with now. So I don't know if I was protecting myself or it was denial, but I felt like if I could put that out of my sight, then
you could create a boundary.
Yeah, I guess that's ultimately what I was trying to do, and the same with the notifications and stuff like that. So there's lots of things. I think the phone, and I haven't dealt with that for so long now, it's hard for me to remember. Like, I don't get a lot of emails anymore, so it's not a really big deal for me.
But it is for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and I think
I'm sure it absolutely is.
Back in the days when our parents were, in the workforce and things, they didn't have mobile phones that could be contacted for. No one even really had personal computers.
Yeah.
So you weren't logging into emails.
The boss is not ringing the home phone.
No, and so you're much easier able to switch off and have that disconnect between work and home. But nowadays, I mean, to be honest, even response time. I've got clients that have cafes and businesses where they're judged on how quickly they respond to people. On emails and not emails, on social media.
Social media stuff,
Yeah, and they can feel that real pressure to respond so that their rating is really high.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous. We're living in such a reactive, responsive world that we just never used to be like that. We weren't contactable 24/7 like we are now.
Yeah, and this is obviously not going to be new news to anyone.
But it's being disciplined, and even for me, who can be really good with my self-care and things, I definitely notice a difference when I go on 2 different types of holidays. One, we often go to Bali, and I'm contactable. Everyone's got, even though I don't have my my roaming on, because of Wi-Fi, people are able to get hold of me through text messages and emails. So sometimes it can even feel like, I'll just shoot off this message, or I'll just reply to this quickly, and that's interrupting that switch off time. And it wasn't until I realised on a cruise where there's no reception and no Wi-Fi and things, that I actually switched off to a different level, because I wasn't contactable. So I actually didn't have any clients pop into my head for that whole period of time when I'm on these cruises. But when I'm in Bali, because I'll get contacted every few days, and I will just see that little icon that says I've got a message and whatever, and just think, I'll just quickly reply to that.
Yep.
I'm not having that same level of disconnect.
I reckon... and again, I haven't talked about this for years and years because it has not been a problem for me, but I remember talking to some of our friends and they would say, I don't mind quickly responding to emails at, 9 o'clock at night because it
gets it off my plate.
Gets it off my plate for the next day. What would you say to them?
I'd say you're training people. You're training people that you will respond really quickly. The person that I think you're talking about, actually maybe I'm not, but they're one of our friends' husbands. He was responding to someone on a Sunday, and now he's in a customer service role, and I don't think that person would expect to reply on a Sunday because they have it's a business, but he did. And what does that do? That sets up an expectation for that particular client that he is going to respond to me on a Sunday or any time really.
Yeah.
And then what that means is next time when he might not feel like doing that or he's busy, that person's going to think that he's rude or that he's not got back to them, when really why should they expect that time frame?
Yeah.
It's because he created it.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I've just remembered I got a text message about work. This person was going to contact me about some work at 5 o'clock yesterday, which is pretty much my cutoff. I don't answer the phone after 5. I happened to be out last night, but I did see on my phone there was a text message at about 7:30 at night going, "Hey, Scott, sorry, got delayed in the office. Is it too late to call?"
Yes.
I didn't even respond to the message.
Yeah.
Me not responding is me going, yeah.
It's too late.
It's too late.
And so you're training him
Yeah.
that I'm not having these conversations at 7:30 at night.
Yep.
But had you have taken that phone call, now he wouldn't feel bad about calling you at 7:30 at night. He probably wouldn't even text you and say, is it too late? He would just know that you answered and you dealt with it last time, so why wouldn't you now?
Yeah.
So we are always training people as to how to treat us or what to expect from us. So going back to that overwhelm with the workplace, if you're training them that you're going to answer your emails or finish off a report or doing whatever it is because you've trained your workplace that you'll do that, then you're locking yourself into kind of a pattern of behaviour that might not work for you.
Yeah.
So coming back to what do you think are appropriate boundaries?
What about guilt, dealing with the guilt of... Because I imagine people get a lot of pressure. And again, because I haven't been in that environment for a while now, it's hard to remember. But, you know, the boss who's going, well, this is due and you've got to do whatever you've got to do to make this happen.
Mm-hmm. I think that comes down to getting really clear with yourself about what do you think is fair and reasonable. Like, you got employed to do this certain job. What were you told that was going to be involved in? And what were you told the hours were going to be, or the level of work was going to be? And is it in that scope, or is it outside of that?
You know who I reckon is good at this is the younger generations.
Oh, yeah, they are actually.
The millennials, the Gen Zs, I guess Gen Ys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Do you know
Maybe
what
not
it
Gen
is?
Ys, Gen
I
Zs,
think-
millennials.
I think for some reason they are better at being able to check in with themselves and go, what works for me? And that's why the older generations are kind of like, what do you mean they don't want to work full time anymore? What do you mean they don't want to da-da-da?
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing, because I'm going, they're figuring out life their way.
Yeah.
They're probably the first generation truly to do it.
Yeah. We were raised, so we're Gen X, we were raised by parents where it's just all about hard work. You've got to keep can't speak for everyone, but my parents were certainly very conservative. Like, the thought of working for yourself was insane. Mm-hmm. You just got to work hard and do that, which I like having a good work ethic. I do have a good work ethic. But I think, what these younger generations are doing is valuing themselves more and not being scared that the boss has so much power that he's going to fire you and you're not going to get another job.
Yeah.
Because I think the other thing that, and again, if you can put things in perspective, and I think it comes back to having options and not feeling trapped, is it's quite hard to find good people for almost any job. Like, a lot of people I speak to who need to hire people, it's hard to find good people.
Yeah.
So if you're a good worker, you're a good employee,
You know that about yourself?
value yourself.
Yeah. And speak up about things. Like, I think often people that I'm working with are feeling all these things and they've never even gone to their supervisor and said, hey, this is going on for me, or this is how I'm feeling. And if they actually just opened up and shared, often things can be done at that level.
Yeah.
But they're not even starting there.
And if you keep getting the pressure after you've had those conversations, then maybe it's not the right job for you. Maybe that person is not the right person to work for.
And the other thing about that is, what we talked about in our previous episode, is sometimes things need to get uncomfortable enough for us to make a change.
Yeah, which was my story. My boss was, I'm not afraid to say, an a-hole. And he made my life so uncomfortable that I eventually quit.
And now we look back, and it's funny how at the time of things happening, it's just terrible and you can't see any other lesson out of that, or you can't see any reason for that happening. And then later on you go, oh my gosh, if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have taken that step, and then I wouldn't have taken that step, and I wouldn't have done this. So
I'd give him a hug. If I bumped into him, I'd give him a big hug and say thanks.
Thanks for being a jerk.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Changed my life.
Yeah. Do you know what the other thing about that particular boss was? You saw what people's lives look like when it's always revolving around work.
Yeah.
And the lack of balance.
Yeah.
And the ego.
Yeah. But it was not my world. I did not want to be in that world.
Yeah. So another tip there is, look around. Are there people there that you are looking up to, or are you looking at their life and kind of going, oh, that's not what I want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Did you have a third one?
Yeah. So the other one, I would say, when you are just really feeling full, in your head, is kind of like just doing a brain dump. So similar to the pie chart where we're just trying to get everything on paper, just write it all down, whatever it might be, what you're pissed off about, what you're upset about, whatever, just get it on paper.
So you're talking about like writing a narrative, like...
Well, it could just be dot points, it could be anything, just get it out of your head. What are you upset about? What are you feeling? What's going on for you right now? Just get it out of your head. And the reason for that is, again, we don't want to go to bed with all of that ruminating.
Yeah.
So it could even be, oh my gosh, tomorrow I've got to do this and this and this at work. All of a sudden you've started thinking about that at 8 o'clock at night. Take 10 minutes, get a pen and paper, and just quickly write that down. All the things you either want to remember for tomorrow, or you want to investigate for tomorrow, whatever it is, get it out of your head. Because if you don't write that down, your brain is going to try and remind you 10 times that night.
Yep.
Again, with the shopping list, it's the same thing. Yep. It's going to keep coming into your mind until you write that down. And then when it pops into your mind, you're like, I've got it. I've written it. I don't need to cover that right now. And then again, that discipline of saying, I'm not going to revisit that until the morning. I'm not going to revisit that until the next day. Whatever your time frame is, it could, look, if you were really struggling, you could give yourself a 3-hour break.
Is this the same as journaling, or is it different to journaling?
Well, it could be done in a journaling kind of a way, but it could literally just be done in a dot point. What am I getting out of my head?
Okay. Just to get it on paper.
Just to get it out of your head. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that one's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's the stuff around the phone and setting boundaries. Like, I feel like it's been discussed on so many other podcasts. I don't want to.
Well, it's just giving that tip that, create that time for yourself. Create that time where you can switch off from the world. And when you're really present, you won't be overwhelmed, because in that moment, either you need to figure something out and therefore it's valid, or you're just in your head and you're not present to your environment. So coming back to your environment, nature's a good one for that. Cold shower, anything to get that vagus nerve.
Gratefulness.
Gratefulness as well.
Like when really, you're scribbling down your dot points, once you get it out of your head, then you could potentially switch it and write 3 things, 5 things that you're grateful for today. Gratefulness works for a lot of different things, but I imagine it would work for this as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think breaking it down, trying to get it out of your head, trying to stop that rumination, dropping off the luggage, from work, and having that ability to sort of mentally switch on and off from your tasks and responsibilities. They're all things that you can do, to try and help you not be in your head and not be caught up in all those energies and emotions that come with those thoughts.
I just had something with that bridge one where that's quite a nice one when you're leaving work and you're dropping it off, and then you're going home and you're leaving it there and you'll pick it up in the morning. How do you make that morning pickup not a real unpleasant experience?
Well, do you know what? If you've actually had a really nice switch off, you might then feel more energized to be like, right, I'm ready to tackle the day.
Yeah, okay.
I'm ready to tackle those things now because I've had that switch off. You wouldn't want to pick that back up if you've just been ruminating the whole night about it and you're like, I didn't get a break.
Yeah. So I'd say if you haven't listened to other episodes, then go back and listen to other episodes that we've covered. A lot of these strategies that you can implement about how to switch off, about how to be present, about how to deal with anxiety. I think that would help a great deal. Yeah,
and then just break it down so it's just one tangible step for yourself. Like me with the tea, that changed everything, because I'm like, right, once I nail that and get that, really familiar and really part of my routine, I'll add in the next step. But just not overwhelming myself with going, I need these 10 steps to be happening now.
Okay. Cool. You want to cover anything else?
I think that's kind of it.
You've done it?
Yeah.
Okay. We seem to be timing this, battery's running out, so I'm going to be quick again. All right, so we've got a mailing list. If you would like to read our newsletter, we send a fortnightly newsletter with lots of different tips and stuff that's happening that has been getting really great feedback from people. I love reading the replies we get from them. You can do that on our website, traceyquayle.com. If you want to follow Tracey on social media, it's at traceyquayle.therapy. And you can follow Tracey on LinkedIn, just look up her name. That's it, isn't it?
I think that's it.
All right. Good job.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for watching or listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.